impact of COVID-19 on economy, business, and employment. This is going to be addressed by our guest for today, Mr. Musarrat Hussain. Mr. Hussain is the change maker, in fact, for leadership and transformation at Maruti Suzuki India Limited. This firm and his company and the industry is quite affected by the COVID-19, the lockdown and beyond. So he's ideally placed to speak a lot on what the impact is on our economy, business, and employment. We'll quickly start with a brief address by our director, Professor Sanjay Kumar Singh. Professor Singh, your address for the students, please.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Patnaik. Good evening to all of you. I hope all of you are well and keeping yourself safe wherever you are and following the guidelines of the government. As you know, today's topic is COVID-19, its impact on economy, business, and employment. Because most of you are second-year student, I assume that you must have gone through to macroeconomics course. And you must be knowing that economies face business cycle every now and then. The business cycle which our economies have faced over the years started obviously from Great Depression of late 20s and early 30s, 1930s. But the recent business cycle, particularly economic recession, which we faced was 2008-9 subprime crisis, which we also call financial crisis. Most of the crises which world has encountered so far have been primarily in developed world. Whether it was Great Depression or subprime crisis, you primarily found that it happened in US, Europe, and then gradually affected the rest of the world. This is the first time in probably last 100 years where there is a crisis which is going to affect simultaneously almost every country. It's not going to be one by one. It would be at the same time affecting the whole world economy. And that's why consequence is also going to be fairly serious. Even rough estimate tells that world economy is going to shrink 3% during this year, vis-a-vis last year. Obviously, impact will be more on first world countries, but all countries, including India, China, Indonesia, which are likely to have positive economic growth, would also face adverse consequence. In case of India, it is expected that our economy would grow in the best possible scenario at the rate of 2% per year. Though it's possible that if situations go not in favorable direction, we may grow only at a rate of 0.2% or 0% this year. It's very easy to understand that if economies don't produce, the whole society suffers. Because what do you produce is actually your real income, which you indeed consume directly or indirectly. So COVID-19, unfortunately, is going to have very adverse impact unless it is checked very quickly. I'm sure Mr. Musarrat Hussain is going to talk about different industry, impact on different industry because of COVID-19. But it's very obvious that some of the industries are going to be affected very badly. Say, for example, tourism industry, transport industry, including airlines, different other modes of transport, hotel industry. They are going to be very badly affected. Even his own industry. I heard that Maruti Udyog Limited couldn't sell even a single car in April 2020. And you know that automobile industry, you have so many vertically related industries which are connected with automobile. You have a, tire manufacturer, you have engine manufacturers, you have, in downward, you have retailers. So many industries are interconnected. Automobile equipment manufacturers, all are going to be badly affected. So let us hear from Mr. Musrat Hussain. What is his take on how COVID-19 is going to impact our economy, businesses, and consequently employment situation in the country. I invite Mr. Musrat Hussain to deliver talk for this session.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Singh. Thank you, Mr. Sareen. Thank you, Mr. Patnaik, and all the faculty members and students. Very good evening who have joined today. It's my pleasure to address IMT. Before I start, I'll actually share my presentation, which I'll be taking you through today. Yeah. So is it visible to everyone?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll be taking you through this journey quickly about the topic itself and some. I'll be talking with statistics and I'll be talking with facts. Some of the realities, what is actually happening. Then I'll take you through the challenges in the employment compensation and all. And then, of course, what is the way forward? Way forward is actually something which is like a guesstimate. But these are basis various deliberations, various, agencies which are predicting a lot of companies which are actually working on all this. So I have all data which I will be presenting is actually coming out of all kind of surveys and detail which I have actually collated. So COVID, as you all know, originated in Wuhan, China. So it was first detected around October, November. Of course, World Health Organization was informed in December. It was declared as a pandemic in March. And as far as India is concerned, we had a Janta curfew on 22nd March. And then we were on a first lockdown starting from 25th of March. And now we are in the fourth phase of lockdown, which started on 18th May and it is going on till 31st of May. Of course, there are now some relaxation from the in the fourth and third also to some extent. Manufacturing operations in some form has started. As of today, more than 49 lakh people are affected worldwide, and there are casualties which is upward of 3 lakh. Morning, I was seeing the figure of India; it was already 1.25. 1,25,000 in the morning. I don't know, by evening the data is so rapidly changing that confirmed cases is increasing, actually galloping. Let me just have a look at the 6 o'clock bulletin. So it says, okay, so the numbers have gone up to 1,26,415. So another 1,600 have been added in the last 24 hours. So that's the way we are, numbers are increasing. But however, if you look at the numbers in India, having 1.3 billion population, uh, we are relatively successful till now because number of deaths are low and people who are getting recovered is more. The percentage of recovery is high. That is because of the stringent lockdown and containment policy that government of India is doing, including all the states. So somehow, so far, so good, we can say. However, there has to be a balance between life and livelihood, and because of that, there is a kind of opening of economy slowly. Of course, not all the sectors are getting opened. Uh, Economic impact in the GDP forecast is from 0.2% to 3.9%. Various estimates are there, but one thing is clear that the country is losing almost 32,000 crores per day. So that's a huge loss. And of course, there are other problems which people are facing during lockdown. And in the news, all many things are already there. So India is estimated to lose around 7 to 8 lakh crores during lockdown total. That's the estimate, which is by Economic Times. And of course, there will be jobs coming into India, but jobs moving out of India, especially IT, ITES sector. News which says that the virus may swallow at least 1 in 10 jobs in India. That's a huge number. And now let us see impact sector wise. Of course, this is indicative, not exhaustive. Many sectors are not mentioned here, but I'll talk about it. Drugs and pharma. And we have categorized into moderate, high, and severe. Moderate is something like short term, maybe up to 6 months impact will be there. Recovery will be there in 6 months. High is where 7 to 12 months we estimate, and severe is long term. This is drawn out of a couple of reports, including McKinsey's report on COVID, and then there is a report by Dun and Bradstreet where we have these data. Drugs and pharma, even during lockdown, they were working. So the pharma industry in the entire country never stopped. They had precautions, SOPs, and they were working. However, it was not full throttle. In fact, it was not full throttle. So the impact is moderate and the recovery will be fast. Even global pharma companies are actually operating full throttle. And this is one sector where we can very safely say that the impact is not going to be much. This is sector where we will not see too much of layoff, furloughs, or any major job cuts, or any major impact on hiring, though indications are there that in the short term there will be some impact. So this is a safe sector. When we look at retail and wholesale, non-food item, the impact is severe. I'll talk about it, but in the food, we don't see too much of impact, and the recovery will be short term also because sale of essential item will recover very quickly. And already the single shops have been allowed to operate. The big chains inside the mall and all are not operating. But perhaps from 1st June, that approval will also come. So, and this sector is going to rebound fast. However, within that, there are a couple of things which is non-food item is going to suffer for some time. Another industry which is logistics. So there may be a severe impact in the short term, but this sector is going to recover very fast, and there is a slowdown in the supply chain due to no production. And we say, for example, in automotive industry, since we are not producing, there is no supply chain, and there is no supply chain upward and downward. So there is no upstream and downstream. So you can see just from one sector, this is the impact. But now that cargo traffic has picked up, e-commerce companies are picking up, and the the logistics and the supply chain across countries for many commodities have already been opened. So e-commerce supply chain is going to recover. And everyone to mute themselves, otherwise there will be a disturbance. So this sector again is a safe sector, and a lot of things will not be that severely impacted. Now coming to automotive, which is my sector. So I'll talk a little bit about my sector. Automotive has been.
I am not muted.
I'll request people to mute themselves, please. I'll request the host to mute everyone and then unmute me. Still somebody.
Inder, just 1 minute, sir. Inder, you are there?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Inder, mute everyone, yeah.
Sure, sir. Okay.
Please, and just may control it. Please continue.
हाँ ऑडियो में जाके Camera.
Yeah. The host has the option of muting. Option called mute all. I think Mr. Patnaik is the host at the moment. I can see host.
inside.
I'll request Mr. Patnaik to mute everyone. Yeah. So,
Done, sir.
yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So, in the automotive sector, the financial year 1920 was one of the worst. I mean, even before COVID, we had the first slowdown in the automotive industry in the last 20 years in India. One of the worst hit. Now, if you look at passenger car segment, commercial and two-wheelers, these are the primary sectors comprising the automotive industry, and entire industry was badly impacted. The whole industry was down by 18%. So if you look at the results declared by SIAM, we were down by 18%. And if you look at the composition, the two-wheeler constitutes around 81% of the automotive market. Passenger car will cover around 13%. Commercial is 3%, and three-wheelers are 3%. So altogether 100%, and the entire industry was down by 18%. Now it is because of various reasons, and it's very important to understand from the automotive point of view. Number one reason was the leapfrogging from BS4 to BS6. The Government of India came with a policy that because of the emission, all automotive companies have to switch over from BS4 to BS6, and we will skip BS5. Now that made all the automotive companies spend a lot of capex on the transition from BS4 to BS6 in terms of design and new engines and all. And the payback period is quite long for such kind of investment. Secondly, the buyers last year were delaying their buying preferences because they were waiting for Bharat 6 vehicle to be launched. Thankfully, Maruti, which is my company, was able to convert all the high selling product, most of the product that we are making into a Bharat 6 much before the deadline. So we were not impacted very much because of that. But issues like the entire change in the mobility actually highly impacted the auto industry. People preference of traveling in Ola and Uber also made people hold back their buying decisions. Then the issue of fuel prices, the fuel prices kept fluctuating and going high. The insurance issue where government came up with a legislation that the third party insurance has to be paid for 3 years in one go. That was a huge impact. And on top of it, the biggest impact on the auto sector was GST. So the auto lobby, SIAM, they were talking about a uniformity in GST and subsuming many other taxes which are there in the state into GST, but that never happened. And ultimately, what government has done is that GST for a small car and for a luxury car, the GST rates are same, 28%. And there is a difference in surcharge in the various categories of which is the highest in the world. Now, if GST, like before GST, we used to have excise. So smaller car attracted lower excise duties, and higher capacity cars had higher excise duties. But the government made it uniform. This sector is actually contributing 15% of the entire GST, which is 1.5 crores. And you can imagine that 1,50,000 crore is the contribution from this sector to the GST, and also contributing 27% to the industrial GDP. But then, because of the government policies, this industry had a lot of drag, and post COVID, as you would have seen, there was zero production in the month of April, and of course in the month of May, though we have started production, but the numbers are very, very minuscule. So if the OEMs are not operating, the impact on 2,800 to 3,000 auto component industries is highly severe. And the predictions are that the auto sector, the impact is very high. Some of the commercial and tractor business may revive, but the passenger car segment and commercial to some extent will see a revival maybe in another 2 years. I was just before this session reading a news article in Auto 80 where Bosch is talking about recovery in auto industry in 4 years. Just now, just 5 minutes before this session, there was a news. Bosch is saying it will take 4 years. The hit on the auto industry is going to be between 25 to 45%. And this sector revival is going to take time. So auto is one of the badly hit along with its value chain. That's a big, big challenge. Coming to another sector, entertainment and all this is going to be badly hit. Things like movie making, theaters, PVRs, because of the social distancing, this will be badly hit, and they are not going to recover in the short term. 2 months of lockdown has taught people they changed their preferences. People are now comfortable watching Netflix, sitting from the comfort of their home, and the entertainment industry actually has to reinvent themselves. This is going to be very, very challenging. Another sector which is very badly hit is tourism and hospitality. Uh, say from the corporate point of view, all the corporate travel will actually be curtailed highly, more than 90%. We expect people will do their meetings virtually, and when there is no travel, obviously the hospitality hotel will be badly impacted because the corporate sector contributes a lot. And then there is tourism. In tourism, because of the social distancing, I think the risk, because of the heightened risk aversion, people will actually shy away from going for tourism at this juncture. And that industry is very, very big. Not only in India, but across the globe, there are countries which are actually surviving on tourism. And that is going to be very, very badly hitting their economy. Now, coming to sectors like electronics and all, there also the impact is high and recovery we don't see in the short term because the problem in the Indian electronic industry is that the entire components are actually sourced from China. And China is going to be a big problem for time to come. And even people will defer their purchases because of the lower disposable income. So is the case with automotive, where people will shy away from buying cars because it is still treated as a luxury. But there is a prediction that because of the social distancing in China, we have seen that people are buying small cars. So if small cars will see a surge, then government has to actually create that demand by lowering the GST and getting the liquidity and couple of things so that the customer is attracted. Though companies are giving lot of doles from their end, like for example Hyundai is saying that you, or even Nissan, that you buy a car now and start paying from next year, and they will take the hit. Similarly, Hyundai is talking about financing to 100%, which is actually not done. Banks are financing either 80% or 90%. So these are certain things. And then talking about MSMEs, they are going to be badly hit because, say, in the auto sector itself, most of the tier 2, tier 3 are actually MSMEs. And then, of course, host of MSMEs in many other sectors who are also into exports, but because of the global recessionary pressure, they will be under pressure. They are having liquidity and cash flows issues, and low in the package that government has announced, there is lot of fiscal trust that the government is trying to give through loan. There is no deferment of interest or such kind of thing there. So they are already under pressure. Let us see how it will work out, but let's hope that this is going to help. We have to wait and watch. Another sector which is reality and infra. See, reality like auto was, I mean, from a long time was in a bad shape. Both commercial, real estate was in a bad shape, and there is not much that is there in this Atmanirbhar package. And let us see how reality and infra picks up. Another sector that we within infra that we believe is going to be hit badly is the market like rental, which is commercial rental. So if you look at Gurgaon, the entire office is owned by DLF or Unitech, almost 90%. And all the MNCs are housed in these offices. With the work from home becoming a new norm, companies are realizing that, and then even once the offices reopens, the norm of one third or 50% people to be present because of social distancing, these companies will slowly reduce their office size actually. The kind of offices these companies have will now switch over to virtual offices. So that market is actually going to crash. Currently, they are not doing it, but I see it in the midterm. This sector is actually going to go down. Another sector which is actually going to benefit, rather the impact is not there, is the telecom sector, where working from home has actually put pressure on the broadband, pressure on Wi-Fi and things like that, where I see investment coming in that area. Maybe our transition to 5G will be much faster because much of our work will be done from home and virtually. So this sector will see a moderate impact and recovery. Of course, the telecom sector was in a bad shape, but this pandemic is actually an opportunity in adversity for the telecom sector. So this sector is actually going to uh, be highly beneficial in this. And of course, couple of things that I have taken is from McKinsey and Dun and Bradstreet and all. Uh, so this is indicative. I have a entire list of impacts. So because of shortage of time, I am just taking the few key sectors here. Now looking at some of the things which are already there in the news. So IMF is projecting a global GDP fall of 3% this year, which is phenomenal. And Goldman Sachs is talking about shrinkage of 45% GDP shrinkage in Q1 globally. And but Goldman Sachs is also talking about, there was a news article that India is going to rebound. It's a good news. We don't know how much it will be true, but they are talking about our economy getting back on track between 7 to 12 months. And if we look at Japan, which is the third biggest economy, they have slipped into recession, and a host of news you would be seeing every day on the economic scenario. But when we look at the job scenario in India, there was a SNAP survey, SNAP poll done by CII last month, where they actually took a poll from various CEOs, and about 52% of the CEOs who actually participated anticipate job losses in their respective sector. And if you look at percentage of job losses, almost 47% of people believe that there will be up to 15% of job losses, and so on and so forth. 32% of people expect a job loss of 15 to 30%. So this is a real-time survey which has been done, which predicts, because of the pressure, these are all short-term. Short-term, yes, there will be a lot of impact in the industry, and in terms, they will reduce their fixed cost, and this is quite apparent. Now, if we look at another survey and the prediction by Naukri.com, and this was again last month only, which was done on maybe April 20th. So it's a month old kind of data, where if you see already the lateral hiring has come down in April. We don't have May data, but if we look at the sectors, what they are saying is that IT and software will have a dip of almost 49%, BPO, ITES 60%. This is a prediction, may not be true. It may be few percentage here and there. Pharma, they are predicting degrowth of minus 54%, means lateral or fresh hiring. They see that they will remain flat and maybe some sector they may go down. Oil and gas definitely is going to go down minus 62%. Hotel, restaurant, travel and airline minus 91%, which is quite evident. Banking minus 67%, insurance 42%, auto ancillaries predicted to be down by minus 82%. These are indicative figures. When we look at hiring trend across experience level, so youngsters will fall into 0 to 3 year category. Their prediction is that minus 67% the growth will be there in hiring. And if we look at sector wise, functional areas wise, general administration, HR is going to get hit by almost 78%, construction 77%, production maintenance 76%, marketing, advertising, sales almost by 69%, accounts finance by 68%. So these are some of the trend which is being predicted basis several interviews and study. So these are certain predictions which are there for the hiring and layoff trend. This is hiring trend. And of course, when we see degrowth, then there is a layoff. When we look at hiring and layoff trend, which is already there, which is a continuation of my last slide. If you look at aviation, almost starting from Air India, Indigo, Go Air, SpiceJet, Tata SIA, they have all either made their people take compulsory leave, or somewhere salaries have been reduced by 30%. Somewhere people have been salary cut has been 5 to 10%. Air India has already laid off pilots, and Go Air have terminated contracts of expat pilots. Salary cut may also be implemented if they do not pick up. So this is already there. These are some of the data which is real time. In manufacturing, Reliance already announced cut of 10% for people up to 10 lakh, and people beyond 15 lakh. People earning up to 15 lakh, 10%. People earning beyond 15 lakh, there is various slab going up to 50%. Mukesh Ambani himself foregoing entire remuneration. But companies like Asian Paints have actually gone ahead and given increment and given incentives rather than cutting. So there are both happening. Tata Motors in some companies are planning to cut down. They have already announced. Apollo Tyre, of course, is going to cut between 15 to 25%. Companies like Maruti, there is no plan. We have not cut salaries. We have paid salaries completely and given to the outsource and third party. As far as the reduction or layoff is concerned, that is not there in the plan. Rather, Maruti is spending 2,700 crores in capex, which is already planned for our expansion and other thing. We are going ahead with our long-term plan. So is many other companies. We are not cutting down. So there are few companies, but definitely in the MSMEs, vendor companies, dealership, because of the cost pressure and cash flows issues, they may take a knee-jerk reaction. But we as a OEM are ensuring that our dealers don't do that, our partner companies don't do that, and to hold on to their labor and workforce. If you look at hospitality, OYO, for example, have already reduced the fixed compensation by 25%. Hyatt Regency has laid off 1,300 people in Delhi itself, and globally 1,300 have been laid off. Delhi also, they have been asked to take leave and all, and so on and so forth. Imperial Hotel, Trebo. If you look at technology-driven company like Ola, Uber, Ola has laid off 1,400 employees, Uber 500 to 700. Make My Trip has asked leadership to cut compensation by 50%. Swiggy just announced a layoff of 1,100 people, which is 14% of their workforce. That was day before yesterday. Zomato laid off 13% workforce. But they will pick up. Actually, they will be, this is a short term, but in the mid term, they will be hiring people because retail is going to pick up and these kind of companies will pick up fast. But retailers where impact was severe and recovery short term, Shoppers Stop, Reliance Retail, Future, Tata, they have asked employees to adjust their leave for the period of lockdown, but they have not taken any harsher steps like job cuts and all as of now. So let's hope that this sector remains intact. When we look at real estate, of course, there has been a lot of layoff. For example, WeWork has already laid off 20% of its workforce in India. And even in news and journalism, Times of India has laid off people. Quint has sent 45 employees on indefinite leave without pay. News Nation Network, which was there in the news, laid off entire English digital team of 15. And Indian Express has asked employees to take temporary salary cuts. So these are some of the things which are the immediate impact. These are immediate impact, which is quite evident, but may not last long. And this is how the economy recovers. And now that we have already got that some kind of fiscal input from the government, and I'm sure that representation by many industries will be heard. So these are few things what I talked about, it is already there in the news. In America, basically almost 20.5 million Americans have lost job. Only yesterday on the TV, I heard that another 24 lakh people have registered for unemployment dole. And the employment rate is 14.7%, one of the highest from 1982. They have not seen this kind of unemployment rate. Maybe 25% of Indian startups will be in serious trouble if the fundings are not there. In the package announced by the government, there is nothing for this sector. Rolls-Royce, as you can see, globally is trying to fire around 8,000 people. So these are certain news which are already there. So these are all repercussion or impact of COVID already seen, but maybe it will not be there in the long run. Economies are going to bounce back. So I'll talk about the recovery in my next slide. Though I am not an economist, but I am closely following some of the papers which are being published and couple of deliberation which is happening. So economic recovery, there are 5 kind of recovery which is being talked about by economists, and it has come on Bloomberg article, which I'll be sharing to you all. So one is a V-shaped recovery or a curve, which is saying that once the lockdown is lifted, the pent-up demand leads to recovery of economy in a matter of weeks or months, facilitated by fiscal stimulus and prudent steps. This is the most ideal scenario. Actually, this is a wishful thinking. How much it is actually going to happen is to be seen. definitely not in India, definitely not in many countries. So this is kind of a wishful curve that we are looking at. Now, when we look at a U-shaped curve, which is you know which is having a scenario of 7 to 11, 12 months kind of a scenario where if the lockdown is lifted in a phased manner, which is already there, we had this is the fourth phase, and maybe full even from June, if 100% opening is not there, then it is phased. Then what is happening to do is that uh, the recovery will take almost 4 quarters actually to come back to the pre-COVID level, uh, because this COVID may peak, but in India, for example, after 4 weeks it is actually peaking, and we don't know that in June, once this relaxation is given, how fast it is actually peaking or it is actually bottoming down. So we have to see that. So the U-shaped recovery is somewhat likely, but we are not too sure. For some sector, yes. Uh, Automotive, definitely no. But for the economy as a whole, we don't see that U-shape is actually going to happen. But Goldman Sachs is very vocal about new kind of a recovery for India. So we have to wait and watch. The third kind of recovery is L-shaped. Actually, L-shaped is more realistic in our context because if the lockdown extends for a longer period, forcing social distancing to continue longer than anticipated, thus leading to a much slower recovery. So what happens is that the government of India is going to open economy very slowly. So initially manufacturing has been allowed, but still many sectors have not been allowed. Uh, so if it is a gradual kind of opening, then I think this is more likely in our kind of economy, which is when I hear many panels and I keep reading, L shape is the kind of recovery that they are predicting, which is a very slow and a long drawn one, and may take almost 2 to 3 years actually for pre-COVID level. When we look at another, there are two more type of and this is for illustrative purpose only. There is a W-shaped curve also. W-shaped curve is that if say lockdown is lifted in June and say maybe by mid-June or end June, suddenly you have to again put a full lockdown because the cases are actually doubling, trebling. So government suddenly goes for another full lockdown. Then in that case, and in some economies already, they are trying to go for lockdown, not everywhere, but this is more theoretical that if the cases goes up again, then it will be like a W-shaped recovery. Let's hope it is not the case. And then there is another one which is Nike Soch or Tick, which is predicted more for Europe or developed countries, where it has gone down because of COVID, but the recovery once the lockdown opens is going to be once the lockdown is eased out, then there is some partial recovery, but then it is a gradual recovery. It's going to go up immediately, but then it will be gradual. So this is being predicted for UK, Europe, and a couple of other developed countries. But for us, L-shaped recovery is more apt in our kind of economy. And this is available. This entire detail is available on the Bloomberg site, and this article and detail uh, by debate by various economists. So we will request students to actually go through this. It's very insightful. Now, when we look at Atmanirbhar package, so there is a RBI has given monetary benefit of almost 8 lakh crore, and then there is additional Manrega allocation, and then you have special liquidity for NBFC, HFC. Then there is a some guarantee scheme for NBFC. RBI has actual given 1,50,000 crore funded to the banks, and MSMEs there are. So we were going through. I mean, this is still being debated. Actually, if you go into detail, there are a lot of plus and minuses in this scheme. Government says it is 10% of GDP. Lot of economists say that it is hardly 2% of GDP, and there are certain areas where impact is going to be high, moderate. I am not an economist, but I keep tracking all this and find that, for example, my dealers, and if you look at the FADA, which is Federation of Dealer Association, they are perhaps maybe more than 5,000-6,000 in this country, having more than lakh of outlet. They are not treated as MSMEs, and this is their long pending demand with the government that they should be treated as MSMEs and should benefit from this fund. So this is from my sector. But if I look at the credit in the agriculture and all, which is fine, but there are many sectors which is actually untouched. So there is nothing about startups. There is nothing about you know companies which are into telecom, high tech. How liquidity injection will happen? Uh, so government will have to play a big role in terms of creation of favorable policies, creation of fiscal stimulus, which is going to help all. And on top of it, because of the severe job losses, India should start thinking of something like dole for or something like unemployment or benefit to be given to people, because people are suffering actually. People who have lost jobs are not able to pay their EMIs for their vehicle or home. They are not able to pay their children fees, and many people are not able to meet their ends actually. Paying rental is become a big problem for people in cities. Actually come up with something on in this area which is long desired. So this will open up slowly, and let us hope and pray for the best. But what is important is what is the way forward. Actually, this has already happened. But what will happen now? What are the opportunities in adversity? What all is going to actually benefit? It's not that everything is finished. It's not like that. There is light at the end of the tunnel, and there is lot of opportunity in this adversity. So let us look at few things that we are envisaging is going to happen. One is very clear that in the industry, full-time job is actually going to reduce, and gig economy will see a mainstream adoption. So far, gig economy was very minuscule. It was there in US, but it has not actually caught up in India. Though we were talking about gig, but gig will come in a big way, and maybe gig will also come in education sector. That's my take. Education sector, you have full-time faculty or part-time faculty, but you will see a gig faculty also. You will have faculties actually coming, not coming. I mean, you have the opportunity because of the virtual learning. You will have faculties actually addressing from US or UK or anywhere. So world is small now, and same is with the company. Companies will look for reducing fixed overheads and trying to outsource many more non-core jobs. Currently, few jobs are outsourced, not all jobs. So companies will now look at what are their core capabilities, and they will look at outsourcing non-core jobs. This is just to reduce fixed cost. Remote and digital working will become the new norm, which is already there. Uh, in manufacturing, we could never think of working from home. There was no question of people working from home. Today, other than the manufacturing, all even designers can work from home. And we are looking into it how we can, and people working from home are more productive actually. Actually, they are working for more than 10 hours, 12 hours, and it is more productive. And it's a win-win basically. So this will reduce congestion on road. This will reduce pollution. Odd even is going to remain. I am telling you, mark my word, odd even will become order of the day. It was experimented in Delhi, it will be experimented in many, many places. Social distancing will also induce a lot of behavioral changes at workplace in a big way. We'll see, like for example, already people in cities like Delhi are not very social. But even people where they are very social, they will become actually unsocial. Greetings will be virtual. Like for example, we will have Eid tomorrow or day after. So Eid will be basically done virtually. You are not supposed to go to the mosque or even greet or meet people. It will be all virtual from a distance. This is the new norm. One has to actually quickly adopt to all this. Salaries in the organization are going to become unfixed. If you look at compensation structure, invariably 70-30 is the norm. 70% is fixed, 30% is variable. Some companies it is 80% fixed, 90% fixed, 10% variable. Junior level, of course, it is 90-10. We presume in HR that there is going to be quite shift in this. So fixed will become unfixed actually. But the silver lining is that there will be new jobs of different kind which is going to come up. I have already seen that because of the digital economy, major boost will be happening in the area of technology. If I look at learning and development in this space itself, almost in the last 2 months, more than 50-60 companies and people have approached us with a newer way of actually capability building, not only in terms of virtual classroom, but gamification, simulation, and lot many things that they are offering. So this is one area where I see that a lot of things will evolve, a lot of new opportunities will be created. Look at Zoom or WebEx or Team or Skype. There were many such available, but how many we were using or we were aware of? I am telling you, in next 6 months, you will have many more companies actually coming in this space, thereby creating more jobs. More startups will be there in this space, thereby creating more jobs. And look at Facebook coming into an agreement with Reliance, and they are investing. So those kind of things actually is going to create jobs. Another thing which is going to happen is localization. India has been talking about make in India, localization, but actually it was not happening. But with this COVID, we presume that lot of companies and technology will actually shift from China to many countries. So if India is able to tap this opportunity in terms of creating infrastructure, better labor laws, better system of clearances, I think many companies will be attracted to India, which is a golden opportunity for India to create make in India and create a lot of employment opportunities within India. But if our policies, uh, if our uh, if our policies, like for example, we hounded Vodafone and we had a retrospective tax on them, which is detrimental. The foreign companies will shy away from actually investing in India if we do not have friendly practices and policies. So this is going to create, even in auto sector, a lot of companies have dependence on technology and component from China and many other countries, including Japan. So if the localization is done, more investment is done in the research and development, I am sure that this localization will give a boost to our MSMEs and lot of make in India, which is actually going to create a lot of jobs in, in the short term itself. I would say from industrial point of view, in a matter of 2 years, lot many jobs will be created. So this is one big opportunity, including telecom, which is going to see a lot of traction because of I foresee a 5G coming in very quickly to this country because now our bandwidth requirement, our internet requirement will be going high. And even in the automotive, when we are talking about connected cars and industry, Internet of Things, I think this industry is going to get a big boost. And if we look at a couple of other sectors also, just a minute. Couple of things from the student point of view, which is also very important to talk about. In the gig working and in the new change scenario, only qualification will not matter. If companies are now looking for lot of qualities or capabilities in people, like agility is one of the competencies people are looking at. We have to look at people who are who can adapt to change, who can shift jobs, who are quick learners. They are the one who are actually the they will be the surviving in the industry, because it is a question of survival of the fittest. So what you all have to do is create the right attitude, do a lot of unlearning and quick learning in new areas. Prior degrees will not be sufficient. And one thing I was just reading day before yesterday, UGC has given approved a proposal. I think it will come shortly, where students can pursue 2 degrees simultaneously. Means one full time and one online they can pursue at the same time. This is a beautiful thing. Students have the opportunity to take up a lot of courses, and in fact the online courses from degrees will now, I'm sure, will have AICTE approval, and even foreign courses which are available will be recognized in India very shortly. And these are the things which is going to bring a change in the education system. Even school have started teaching even kids online. So there is a big change here. And what I see is that huge infrastructure is not required. Even school colleges will look at pruning down their infrastructure and look at cost down and look at a mixed mode or a blended kind of a learning, which is actually in times to come will, because of the social distancing, couple of things will actually move to online platform. And this sector is also going to see a lot of change. Freshers can look at, they should not expect lengthy training in any industry that they will go. Industries will actually look at shorter version, because programs that we were doing for 2 days plus 1 day, that we have reduced to maybe 3 hours of webinars. So then reskilling, and the students should pick up a lot of certification in the area of cloud computing, AI, blockchain, big data. These are going to be an added advantage. Language is another area where students can look at, because if a lot of companies shift to India, knowledge of languages, foreign languages like German, French, Japanese, this will be an added advantage. So students should look at opportunities here, that what they can do now. And of course, reskilling and e-learning adoption shall emerge even faster. I have already talked about it. Even in our company, we have switched over from classroom to online learning and blended learning. So online learning is virtual happening, plus we have e-learning. So and e-learnings are basically bite-sized learning. And another thing is that there will be a lot of new ventures which I anticipate, which is going to come. And in adversity, you have a lot of opportunity, and there are people who are taking advantage of the technology and will come up with innovative products and solutions. Lot of startups will also come up in this area. And of course, new entrepreneurs and micro entrepreneurs will rise. given the proactive support by the government. So, this is by and large in a nutshell. I'm trying to say this subject is very vast, but there is a positive sign also going forward. We should not worry. We have seen Great Depression. We have seen stagflation in Germany. During World War, there was a crisis, World War II. The global crisis was there that time. But each time the world has emerged, coronavirus is going to remain, not going to go so soon. Predictions are that it is going to coexist. Malaria was also very fatal. Even today, 2000 plus people die in India every month. But we have developed immunity, or we are coexisting. Similarly, polio has been eradicated, so called, but still polio patients are there and it is there. AIDS is so much of things have happened, but still people are living. So I think coronavirus is also going to coexist and life will go on. But yes, this time there will be a lot of change. The world is going to change for better. So this is all I have to say, and I'll be basically taking now questions, which is more important. And lastly, when before I say thank you, uh, this was something very important. Companies like WhatsApp, Airbnb, Uber, they were all formed during 2008-9 recession. That's a beautiful thing, and these are the companies, as you know, leader in their own area. And definitely in this recession that we are seeing, definitely that's what I am saying. That's the silver lining. Many such companies will emerge, and I see no worries in terms of economy, in terms of job creation. The right impetus is there by the government. Everything will be fine. So thank you very much. Now I am going to take questions, which I am sure would have there in the.
Thank you, Mr. Hussain. I'll take a few questions for the sake of time. I'll pose those questions to you. Okay. Let me not sound like a doomsday conspiracy guy or the world is the end is near kind of a thing, but many parents, our students, our faculty members, in fact, all of us are quite concerned with the way the jobs are evaporating. I mean, the people who have jobs are kind of are losing it. Not only the gig economy kind of jobs, but the regular full-time jobs, they're losing it. Now, looking at the recovery and looking at whatever is going to happen, it's going to take a long time. So, is it a good idea for students to do business education now?
All is not lost, let me tell you. Companies who have already given offers are already honoring that. So people, freshers will be joining. I don't see too much of challenge with freshers because companies do have short-term, long-term plan, and hiring fresh talent is always the high agenda of good companies. So there could be a little dip in terms of summer internship or maybe some jobs not getting honored. It may be, but that's not the end of the world. I think that will be a short-term uh, problem, which is go away. And students should not feel dejected because I remember many people who could not get job in 2007 or 8 from many campuses. They are not well placed now. They are doing very well. They had a late start. Uh, Maybe they started after 8 months or 1 year. But even after that, they have done very well. They have caught up with their colleagues or even ahead of them. So life doesn't end. But during this period, if people are not able to get job, my take is that that period should not be wasted. That period should be invested for acquiring certain skills, certain capabilities, which is actually going to help them. As the saying is that when a fisherman is not in the seas because of the storm, they are actually, mending their nets. So they are doing something. They are not sitting idle. So if there is a storm in the job market, the students can actually upskill themselves, do certain things. In fact, they can take up a lot of assignment within the campuses or colleges also. They can support, not sit idle. So there may be certain hiccups, but I don't see it in a long term. So nothing to worry on that.
Got a couple of questions on your industry. It's seen with this kind of endogenous shocks, the industry actually reinvents itself. Student has said, moving ahead from, the company have invested already, most of the companies have in India, at least from environmental emission norms from BS4 to BS6, when the government wanted to leapfrog from BS4 to BS6, and there was a big, debate on this. But now sales are going to take a hit. Are you going to do anything on the R&D, which is the need of the hour? Because this is what is required now. Are you going into electrical vehicles or such kind of things so that something good can happen to the industry and maybe more jobs can be created?
I think let me clear the perspective on the electric vehicle. People talk a lot about electric vehicle. See, the government of India talked about going electric by 2030. They are saying 100% public vehicles will be electric, 40% in the private. Now, when they have broken down the policies, they are saying that the passenger car should go electric. Two-wheelers, they have been more harsh, saying that vehicle which are below 100 cc should be electric by 2025, and I think below above 150 cc by 2023. Now, I'll come point by point. The industry is saying that the investment of 10 to 15,000 crores that they have done on conversion Bharat 4 to Bharat 6, the recovery period, because the sale of Bharat 6 vehicle will start from 1st April. That was the date, which has not started as yet. Now, 3 years, they cannot recover 10,000 crores. Similarly, vehicles, you are saying recovery by 2025, which is actually detrimental to the entire auto industry. Now I will come to one big questions for all of you. Uh, if you look at electric vehicle, our WagonR, which is in collaboration with Toyota, we are rolling out an electric vehicle this year very cautiously. We have the technology, we can roll it out. But there is a fact which everybody should remember, that an electric vehicle will cost at least 2.5 to 3 times of the normal vehicle cost, right? So if your WagonR is for 5 lakh rupees and the company asks you to pay 12 to 13 lakh rupees, who is going to buy that? Number one, nobody has that kind of money. Now, the second point, first is money. Second is that you cannot have standard electric vehicle policy across India. Cities like Shimla are not polluting. Mangalore is not polluting. But you will make people buy such a costly vehicle. The customer will shy away. How you are going to create a demand? There is no pollution there. Why they will pay 15 lakhs for a vehicle? The question is that. So government has to look at, like what Maruti is talking about, we have to look at hybrid. We have to look at CNG, which is there for last 15, 17 years. Government has not been able to actually do much in the area of CNG beyond NCR. They have to actually, these are all alternative fuel, and these are equally good. And CNG vehicles are cheap, hardly any cost. It's the same vehicle with only a catalytic converter fitted by the company, and that is affordable by people, and the mileage is also very high. And government actually has taken a back seat on this. Now coming to another big issue, big issue which I am talking about, which you people should understand, that if you look at a conventional car, a car which you are owning, so for example, you own a sedan or you own a SUV, a typical sedan or a SUV will have close to 20,000 components. 20,000 components are put into that vehicle which you are using. Now those 20,000 components are actually produced by more than 2,800 auto manufacturing companies, which is tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 put together. 2,800. They are employing something like almost 10 to 15 million people. And if you look at electric vehicle, I don't know how many of you know or not, an electric vehicle will have less than 100 components. Less than 100 components. You have 20,000 component in a conventional car, only less than 100 component in a typical electric vehicle. Now, if you are moving to electric vehicle, what is going to happen to those 2,800 and many more MSMEs and auto component industry? The whole ACMA will collapse. What will happen to those employment which you have actually generated through the automotive value chain? What is going to happen? So easier said than done. Electric vehicle will come into India. It will coexist. It will coexist. But it cannot be the policy of the government to only ensure that electric vehicles are there. It is not affordable. In India, no company is actually making a lithium-ion battery. Maruti has put up a plant in joint venture with Denso and Toshiba in Gujarat. We are trying to make one, but that will only suffice for us. That is just to ensure that the cost of vehicle goes down. So that is localization that we are talking about. But most of the lithium-ion batteries are made in China and they are very costly. And thereby you will push the cost. And you look at any product which is available today, they are all 15 lakh, 20 lakh, 30 lakhs. Who is going to pay that kind of money? So saying that electric vehicle will become the norm, why government should look at alternative fuel? Government should actually incentivize hybrid vehicle, which they have not done actually. If you look at the budget which came, it doesn't have anything on the hybrid vehicle. So government has to create that stimulus. Government has to create that demand. Just talking about flying car or a driverless car, we have to look at the current realities in India. So, and this sector is contributing, as I said, 27% to the manufacturing GDP, contributing 15% of the total GST collection. This is a golden goose for Government of India. And if they do not change the policy, they are going to kill this golden goose. Let me tell you very bluntly. And electric vehicle has to coexist. Don't look at electric vehicle just from the customer point of view. There are whole host of things around it. And there is no charging points in India. Let me tell you, in last 18 years, we have not been able to create CNG stations beyond NCR. So how do you think that we will be able to create charging station across India? First, we have to create infrastructure and then talk about it.
It's always a challenge. Most of the companies are seen to invest in multiple technologies, but now moving away from R&D to, let us say, the sales side.
Yeah.
If you look at the sales experience or maybe the showroom with the physical distancing and all the new norms that are going to come, is there going to be a test drive, for example? Is there going to be a showroom which is functional in the traditional way, or you see major change there?
See, I'll tell you, already we have gone digital in terms of our sale. So most of the bookings which are coming is actually online. But when you talk about the Indian customer psyche, actually, you have to see it to believe it. You will not do virtually. Actually, there are many things in the Indian social context. Will actually be going to the showroom, physically seeing. You will not buy a gold jewelry online. I think nobody will buy. You will actually go and physically see a gold jewelry and then buy. If you have to, ladies have to buy saris, I can bet that they will not buy online. There are many things, including car, because in India, we are an economy which is not a very rich economy. For anybody spending 5 lakh rupees through a loan, they will jolly well go to a showroom, have a touch and feel, do a test ride. But yes, for us, it is important that we create that kind of infrastructure, which we are actually doing, trying to create social distancing. If you look at our service centers, we are trying to ensure that service reaches to your home rather than you go to the service station. So we have to innovate in all our activities that we are doing, and sale is also going to be impacted. As far as test ride is concerned, you can't do a virtual test ride. You can, but you need the feel and touch of a vehicle, because you are spending 5 lakh, 7 lakh, 10 lakh rupees, which is a big money in India. So there is going to be a change, but we have to ensure the social distancing norm, which is already put in place. If you and there is a virtual kind of if you go to one of our dealer showroom in, I think, somewhere in East Delhi, I think Indraprasth metro, I think it is there only. If you enter, you will not find anybody. Actually, it is computer aided. So everything will be through a computer. You will hardly have anybody inside. So our showrooms are also going to innovate in terms of how customer experience is going to be. And Nexa is one example of shift from a typical Maruti sales channel to a Nexa channel. If you go to a Nexa channel, the experience is completely different. And even within Nexa and Arena, we are going post COVID, a lot of changes we are going to do, and most of the companies are actually doing. It's not only for us, it's for the entire auto industry, or rather any industry. If you start going to a showroom, you will see the change, and it's going to bound to be there. It's quite unlike liquor shop, where people will fall over each other to get a hang of liquor. But these are products where you have to ensure social distancing, and also ensure that customer walk-in is also there, because that is also very important.
I'm getting a few questions on. I'm getting a few questions on Atmanirbhar. I'm getting a few questions on pre-owned cars and the used cars, fresh stock sales, and all that thing. But let me take this one last question before we wind up for the day, because of the time, for the sake of time. Many of our students are saying this. I mean, going through your presentation, they see that they have to keep learning to be relevant in this new economy, because the requirements from the industry is like that. So is it like it's going to be a lifelong learning for them? And if that is the case, then how are they going to plan for their career?
I already said that, going forward, we will be moving into a very different kind of working scenarios, and gig will be the order of the day. And you can only work in a gig if you are actually skilled. Gig is highly skilled workforce, let me tell you. And the full-time workforce numbers will keep on going down, except that, of course, there will be a key requirement in 4 areas. So students have to actually keep on acquiring what is there in the what is the current requirement, and they are fast learners. Actually, they will not take time for somebody who is 15 years or 20-year-old. So this is the best time to reskill and also assess their abilities. What you call is they should do a lot of psychometric assessment of theirs. They have to look at their personality profile, ensure that what organization is actually needing today. They can develop those capabilities, because all these competencies are coachable and observable, measurable also. So they can measure it through psychometric tool, and look at how they can sharpen their skills. They can take help of, they can take career counseling, they can seek help from faculties or their alumni, senior alumni, who will be of great help actually during this time. Actually, networking with your alumni is one of the key things that institute should actually start working on in a big way. They are the one who are actually going to support their alums. So this is one big thing that has to be, each institute has to actually build on that.
Yes.
There is a
Career
time.
counseling is career counseling is kind of very important for all the students now. because
Yes.
of the very dynamic situation that the market is going to throw at them. Surely, I mean, with support from industry like yours, with our faculty members, we can do a lot of career counseling and do all those things on a regular basis. And webinars is the way to go forward. We'll have just one last question from Mr. Sareen, and then we'll wind up for the sake of time. And if you have any further questions, you can always mail us and we'll try to get their answers. Mr. Sareen, your last question, and I think we are running really out of time. So we'll wind up after your question. Yes, please.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Hussain, that as you said that the new jobs will be created in this time will come up. And so there should be an onus on the institution also. So institution like ours should focus on what kind of a skill development to make our students ready post-COVID.
Fine. But the institute has to actually be proactive in terms of understanding. Your strategy team has to see that which sector is actually going to come up, which are the sectors which is actually going to be impacted, and accordingly, the need of those sectors, your actually training and placement team, your student networking, actually all this information will flow from your alumni network itself. And each industry where your students are, actually they can give input in terms of what new is happening in their industry, what skill they are requiring. Now if you are able to get detail from say 500 students of yours, you will get ample database to actually start making a strategy around top 10 or top 5 out of that, which will be beneficial, and these your students can themselves do. I mean, with students and faculty, you can reach out to your own folks and they will tell you what's happening in their industry. Each one of them will give you one or two suggestions, which will add up to hundreds of suggestions, and you can then filter out, make a crack team which will work on it. And somebody should keep tracking what is happening in the industry or what is going to come, because industries which are proactive, who are actually ahead of others, they are, because it's the survival of fittest actually. It's a question that how you outsmart others. Even those industries will survive who are actually going to innovate. They are game changers. They are ahead of the curve. Otherwise, in automotive, it is a saying that companies which are selling less than a lakh of vehicle in a year, actually they will perish with the kind of overheads that they have. They will find it will be actually very, very difficult for them. So like for institutions also, all engineering colleges, B schools, they have to reinvent, they have to innovate themselves, be ahead of the curve, and your alumni are the best source of information.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Hussain.
Thank you, Mr. Hussain. Thank you, Mr. Sareen, for asking that question. Mr. Hussain, it's been wonderful to have you on. It's wonderful to hear you and your insights on the company, on the industry, on the economy.
Mr. Patnaik, I'll just take a minute.
Please go ahead. Please go ahead.
You were asking about used car market, and
I have some questions on that as well. Yes.
quickly I'll tell that if there is a social distancing and people are going for not going for public transport or even avoiding Ola, Uber, then there are chances that if first that our used car market actually is going to go up, which is also happening in China. So this market is going to be buoyant, and we are hopeful that our true value, which is actually adding 30% to our revenue, is going to see a lot of traction. So it will balance out between new car and the old car sale.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Hussain.
you.
It's been wonderful to have you on. There are many questions coming on. We still have perhaps another webinar we'll do sometime when time permits, and we'll try to see what the real, the early signs you have said today, the real solidified signs perhaps will come later, and you can tell the responses also of your company and others. But like you said, the students have to learn a lot. We'll have to find out what opportunities come their way. They have to be very mindful of one thing. They have to look for jobs, but they have to build a career. So this is perhaps the time which is appropriate for them to actually take a step back and look at their career, not just get a job. So it's been wonderful. Thank you, guys. Thank you, everyone, my colleagues, my wonderful students, our guest, Mr. Musarat Hussain. Thank you so much for coming for this webinar, and you stay healthy, stay safe. We'll stop the webinar now. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. All the very best. Have a nice evening.
Thank you. Have a great evening.